Premiership Rugby is back after not a long break, and yeah, we're kind of back where we left off. Big win for Exeter, 33 points to 3 on the scoreboard. It looks like a bit of a hiding, and I suppose it is, although 3 of the Exeter tries, 70th minute, 74th and 78th. So the scoreline kind of did blow out at the end, but you'd have to say, just better team, man. Tough day at the office for Quins, to be honest. I mean, there's certainly some positives, but not enough to really get excited about going into the new season. Exeter, man, despite missing all their internationals, I don't know, Harlequins have got a fair few guys out as well, but they've just got depth, man. Depth, and some guys who just don't get selected by Eddie Jones for whatever reason. I'll go over quickly some of the key events and the stats, and you guys can let me know what you guys reckon. To be honest, I watched this game in a bit of a disjointed way. I watched the first 10 minutes live, and then my kids had their rugby class in the morning, so I had to kind of call it quits, and then started watching from like the 60th minute before it was finished, so I knew what was going to happen, and then finished the game, and then had to go back and watch from minute 10 to like minute 40. So, bit all over the shop, so bear with me, and do let me know some of the stuff I missed. But yeah, there were a few, I guess, in the first half. Some of those contestable balls were getting knocked on, so we saw some scrums. I think both sides won scrum penalties early, to be fair, but Exeter won the first one. Then they lost their own line out, so that was maybe a bit of a worry. But I don't know, early on it had that feeling of this is a first match game, like, but there shouldn't be that kind of rust after only a month off. Maybe a month is long enough that the guys have lost a little bit of edge, maybe especially the Harlequins guys, with Exeter, you know, playing in a couple of finals only 30 odd days ago, so maybe they're a little bit sharper. But yeah, both teams seem to be lacking a little bit of cutting edge, although it did come right obviously for Exeter in the second half. Harlequins missed an early shot at goal, to be honest, after that first scrum penalty that they won. But man, that guy, Facundo Cordero, it's the first time I've seen him play. He looked pretty dangerous. He ended up limping off like on 53 minutes or something like that. But there was an early one where he managed to keep a kick through somehow in play, pretty athletically, and then he had a big line breaks. He had a couple of good runs from fullback. Disappointing he didn't last the 80, but hope he's all right. Quins eventually did kick the first points of the game, so they made it 3-0. So believe it or not, despite that scoreline, Harlequins were actually in front, and that was, I think, 13 minutes, so there hadn't been much doing in terms of scoring, and the first half generally was pretty quiet in terms of the scoring. Matt Simmons unfortunately went off for Harlequins just on about the quarter of 15 minutes, quarter of an hour on the clock. So yeah, kind of not what you need, especially when Exeter are down some of their international locks. It's an area you want to have your most experienced guys to be putting pressure on, but that just is what it is. The try of the game is probably the first one. Sam Simmons' first of 3 tries. It was a line-out move from Exeter, proper thing of beauty. A couple of passes after the line-out, and there's a huge gap for Sam Simmons. And boy, does he have gas, man, for a number 8. I know people say maybe Eddie Jones doesn't think he's big enough, but there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? Like, what he lacks in size, he makes up for with other aspects of his play. There's always a question about that kind of play making it at the international level, but man, I would back the dude. He's huge pace, and over for the try. He ran a great line as well, because was it Earl that was trying to run him down? Just with the angle that he ran, there was no catching him. Absolutely thing of beauty try. So 7 points to 3. That's how it was in the first half. That was how it was at halftime. So the first half was, I mean, it wasn't all that slick. Like I mentioned, a little bit of rust maybe that's built up over the month or so that these guys have had off. A few contestable balls getting knocked on, bit of line out going the wrong way, scrum resets and whatnot. Second half seemingly is pretty much all Exeter, man. They get a try to Ewers. It's a 5-meter line out. I just wrote the word easy because it was really easy. Unfortunately for Joe Simmons, he missed the conversion to that one. And I think he'd kicked like 34 kicks in a row up until that point or something. So he's broken his streak. But it was 12-3. Harlequins did manage to win a penalty not long after that Ewers try. And it seemed like a pretty crucial moment because they had just gone down, like, you know, you're still within touching distance at 7-3, 12-3. You need to score to get back in the game, and it seems like a really good opportunity. They have a chance to maul it, and they can't get through by the maul, so they spin it wide, and they actually go over the line. But the referee rules there was obstruction in the build-up, which was a pretty brutal moment. They just got one of the blocking lines a bit too blocking, and I wrote that's, you know, a blown chance and big moment because momentum shift needed to go in Harlequins' way at that point. And after they after they didn't get any points, it was kind of all downhill from there. Exeter did get held out a fair bit though, to be honest. Like, Harlequins had to get themselves out of jail quite a few times. It's not like Exeter's every maul went over for a try. But the other two Sam Simmons tries were both maul tries, and the Townsend try was a few phases after a maul. So yeah, it's an effective weapon. I don't have a problem with it. I know some people give teams like that a lot of stick. Down here in the Southern Hemisphere, we've got the Brumbies, who are a hell of a maul team as well, and it's such a weapon. But if you've got something like that in your arsenal, why wouldn't you use it? I mean, they can score things of beauty tries. I've seen their backs get loads, and Sam Simmons' first one, as I mentioned, was glorious. But, yeah. Baldwin, at one point, to be honest, saved a potential 2-on-1 opportunity with a great, we call it an ankle tap, they called it a tap tackle. In terms of great defensive moments, that was one of them. But, yeah, maul try to Simmons on 70. Bonus point try to Simmons on 74. Again, it's a maul. It almost stopped that one, to be fair, but Sam Simmons, again, if you're thinking international level, he's got the nous as well. He knows when to break off. If the thing's not going forward, like the 70th minute one, it's pretty much straightforward, too easy. The 74th minute one, the Harlequins guys do a pretty good job of stopping the main maul attack, and then he just breaks off. And he's too good, so I think it was, he gave somebody the big don't argue. Was it Tyrone Green? 26-3, and then last try to Townsend was after about 5 phases or so. I think Cowan Dickey had gone close, so Flaherty had gone close on the right wing, and then Stu Townsend just goes over. So, yeah, bit of a hiding in the end, man. Second half, they just ran away with it. I would have liked to see Harlequins get that try just early part of the second half, but not to be. Esterhazen did some big strong runs. He bumped off O'Flaherty at one point, I think. But yeah, the penalties were too costly for Quins. They were really under the pump. Penalty count finished 16-7, and you're going to have a tough time winning games with that penalty count. Possession 57% to Exeter. Territory 60% to Exeter. I did mention there were some positives for Harlequins. The work at the breakdown was pretty solid at times. They did concede some silly ones, but I think they won about 10 turnovers, so they managed to steal some pill back from Exeter and get themselves out of jail a few times. Believe it or not, the scoreline could have been worse. I think Dombrant got 3 turnovers. They kept him kind of quiet from the back of the ruck and whatnot, back of the scrum, but 20-odd run meters, I think. But, yeah. Yeah, he was certainly in the shadow of his opposite number in terms of, well, Sam Simmons was man of the match, quite rightly. He had 85 run meters, 7 from 7 tackles, including one big busting one. And, yeah, man, overall, just a really good performance from Exeter. The other game was Sale against Northampton. Maybe that's the one I should have watched, to be fair. 32 points to 23. Both bonus point wins for Exeter and Sale. So both kind of continuing where they left off last season. Harlequins will go away to Northampton next round, and Bath await Exeter at home for Exeter. So, yeah, bit of Premiership rugby. As I said, it was a bit disjointed and a bit one-sided. I do prefer to watch games a bit closer than that, but you've got to admire watching Exeter, man. They're just so good at what they do. A bit disappointed for Quins. I mean, Danny Kerr was popping some kicks through and trying to keep defence busy, but sometimes the Quins guys were just under a world of pressure. So, yeah, that's how she goes. You guys let me know what you reckoned, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.